everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Alex and today I'm doing the N is for Novella book tag. Now I was just recently tagged to do this by Elise over at Elise Reads and Speaks. If you haven't seen her channel before, I will link it down below. I love her, she is incredible, go check her out. And the tag was originally created by Sean at Sean the Book Maniac, so I will link his original tag video in the description as well. But essentially this tag just has a bunch of questions about N is for blank, and then there's a question to go along with that prompt. So we're just gonna go ahead and dive right in. But before we get into the video, if you're new here and you're not already, be sure to go down and hit the subscribe button as well as the bell icon down below so that you never miss out on any of my content. So without further ado, let's get started. The first question is, N is for novella, the last good one that you read. And I honestly do not read a ton of novellas. I think that the last novella that I read was Elevation by Stephen King, which I read back in March of last year. And that was one that I did enjoy. So I guess that would be the last good one that I have read. But if you don't know about this one, essentially it follows this man who is staying the same size physically. So he still looks like he should weigh the same that he always has. But when he steps on the scale, the number keeps dropping lower and lower and lower. So he is losing weight, but he looks the same, and he's wondering, am I going to hit zero? What happens when I hit zero? Yada yada, what's wrong with me? And it just kind of follows him from there. So it was really interesting. This is my first foray into Stephen King. If you like him or you want something contemporary sci-fi, speculative fiction, go ahead and pick it up. Question number 2 is N is for neighbors. Pick a book that is focused on or mainly centers around neighbors. And for this one, I'm going to go with A Man Called Uwe by Frederick Bachman. Now this book follows our main character, Uwe, who is an elderly man. He is recently a widower and he is having a hard time dealing with that, but he is set in his ways and he wants everything to be just the way that he has them, and he doesn't want his life to change in any way. And then he gets new neighbors that move in, this young couple with their 2 young daughters, and his life gets turned upside down because of that. This is one of my favorite books of all time, as I know that it is for a lot of people, and the neighborly relationship in this book is really impactful and really touching. 3 is N is for name. Pick a writer who you'd recommend whose first or last name start with the letter N. And for this one, I'm going to go with a recent addition to my wheelhouse, and that is Sylvain Neuvel. Now, this is a Canadian author. He is the author of the Sleeping Giants trilogy, the Themis Files trilogy that most people know him for. I have read the first 2 books in the trilogy, and I'm about to start the last book in the trilogy. I have read his little short story, The Test. Actually, if that one's considered a novella, that can answer my first question. I don't know what it's actually considered, but regardless, if you have not checked out Sylvain Neuvel and you are a fan of sci-fi, you need to get on it. He is an incredible writer. I have really enjoyed listening to the Themis Files throughout the month of March. He is an incredible storyteller, and the way that he crafts his tales are just really amazing and well thought out, and just everything that I need right now. So again, if you're into sci-fi, or if you are not into sci-fi and you want a gateway into sci-fi, check out some of Sylvain Neuvel's work. 4 N is for nuptials. Pick a work that doesn't suck that revolves around a wedding. And for this one, I'm gonna go with The Wedding Date by Jasmine Guillory. Now this book starts out when our 2 main characters, Alexa and Drew, get stuck in an elevator together, and they get to talking, and Drew tells her that he is going to be attending the wedding of his ex-girlfriend. And Drew winds up asking Alexa to be his date for the wedding. They've never met before this day that they get stuck in the elevator together, but Alexa says yes. So they wind up going together to this wedding as dates, and then romance ensues from there. This is one that I think a lot of people have read and enjoyed. I really liked it. I just thought that it was an adorable contemporary, and even though the wedding is not the main focus of this novel, it definitely plays an important part because these 2 characters meet and get to know each other based around this wedding. So again, if you're looking for a fun, cute adult romance, there you go. 5 N is for Not Aging Well, a book that you like less than when you first read it. And for this one, I'm gonna go with Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. I read this one at the very tail end of 2019, and I wound up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars, and I said in my review that I did enjoy this one, but I definitely prefer Little Fires Everywhere by this author, and I think that's a lot of people's perspective. But the more that I sit with Everything I Never Told You, the less I like it looking back on it. I just think that a lot of the topics that are covered in this novel are not really handled very well, and kind of thinking back on it, a lot of it I don't even remember remember really, and I felt like it should have been more impactful than it actually was, and just overall thinking about it kind of leaves a sour taste in my mouth, so I'm gonna have to go with that one. Number 6, N is for N, a book title with a lot of N's. For this one, this isn't exactly a lot of N's, but it was really hard to come up with an answer for this, so I'm just gonna go with Never Never by Colleen Hoover and Taryn Fisher. This is not something that I have read, but I'm definitely interested in it. You guys know that I love Colleen Hoover, but I've never read from Taryn Fisher before. I know that they are really, really close friends and they're making fun of each other on the internet all the time. Never Never was actually originally published serially, so there were 3 different issues that came out and then they were combined at the end to make one novel, but a title with N's, Never Never, there you go. Number 7, N is for Not Sure, a book that you keep changing your mind about whether or not you want to read it. For this one, I'm gonna go with The Help by Catherine Stockett. Now, I have seen the movie for The Help and I very much enjoyed it. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I did really like it. I started reading The Help for Black History Month. I started listening to it on audio, only made it probably 15 to 20% of the way through because it is very, very long. So that's one of the reasons that I don't want to read it, but I did enjoy what I read of it. But also I started in Black History Month not realizing that the author is not Black. So that made me not want to read it, but also I did enjoy what I read of it, but it's not at the top of my priority list. So I'm kind of going back and forth, feeling like I should start it back over and get back on it, but I don't know. Hopefully I do eventually maybe want to get to it later this year. Let me know in the comments if you've read it and if you think that I should go ahead and continue it or if I am good just having seen the movie. Number 8, N is for Nitpick, a literary or writing related thing that just annoys you to the high heavens. And for this one, I'm gonna go with that classic YA line talking about I let out a breath that I didn't know I was holding. It is in 75% of YA books. I feel like even if they're not a romance, that you see that line or a variation of that line in some way, and it's so overdone, and I need it to stop. So authors, if you think that you want to write that line, I'm telling you, figure something else out. Number 9, N is for Next to Nothing. Name a book that you read as an adult that you can remember almost nothing about. And this one, I'm gonna go with The Girl from Everywhere by Heidi Heilig. I read this one in the middle of last year. All I remember is that it's about a girl that is a time-traveling pirate, and that's literally all. I really did not like this book very much. I gave it 2 stars, so I think that's part of why I rated it so low, is because it wasn't very memorable, or maybe the other way around. Maybe I pushed it out of my memory because I rated it so low, but regardless, I only read that less than a year ago and I remember nothing about the book. I can't even tell you the main character's name. Number 10, N is for New Zealand. Name a book or a writer that you would like to read that is from New Zealand. And I actually could not think of any off the top of my head, so I just did a little bit of research and I found one that sounds really interesting. It is both set in New Zealand and written by an author from New Zealand, and it's called The Luminaries by Eleanor Catton. Now, since I literally just discovered this book about 30 seconds ago, I will just read to you the Goodreads synopsis to let you know what it's about, but it sounds really interesting. It is 1866 and young Walter Moody has come to make his fortune upon the New Zealand gold fields. On the stormy night of his arrival, he stumbles across a tense gathering of 12 local men who have met in secret to discuss a series of unexplained events. A wealthy man has vanished, a prostitute has tried to end her life, and an enormous fortune has been discovered in the home of a luckless drunk. Moody is soon drawn into the mystery, a network of fates and fortunes that is as complex and exquisitely ornate as the night sky. So that sounds really, really interesting to me. I am a little bit weary to just go ahead and pick it up because Goodreads says that it's 848 pages long, but if I am looking for a tome at some point, that one sounds really cool. Number 11, N is for Nodding Off, a mind-numbingly boring book. And for this one, I'm gonna go with The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness. I've talked about this one a couple times on my channel. It bored me to tears. It was so long for no reason. The book is like 500 pages long. It could have been 250 pages long because we get a little bit of world building and backstory and build up and action in the first like 200 and so pages, and then we have 300 pages of traveling, just traveling, that's all, and then the last 100 pages has a little bit of action. So I was bored to tears throughout the entire thing. The very, very ending did pique my interest enough to make me interested in the rest, but they're all that long, and I don't want to read the rest of them if they're all going to be that boring. So if you've read the whole trilogy, let me know down below if it's worth it to continue. Number 12, N is for Next, the next book that you're going to read. And I've got a couple lined up here. So first, for my next audiobook that I'm going to be listening to, that's going to be Only Human by Sylvain Neuvel, which is the third and final book in the Themis Files trilogy. I'm very, very excited for that one. I have binged this series over the month of March and I have been loving it, so I'm going to be reading that one through audio. And then I think the next physical book that I'm going to be picking up is In 5 Years by Rebecca Searle. I just got this one from the library and I've heard a lot of people talk about it. I think the person I've heard talk about it most is Jacqueline from We Be Bookin', but this book follows a woman. One day this woman goes in for a job interview and they ask her, you know, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I think that she just gives that standard answer, just kind of a blanket answer. And later that evening she gets engaged and now she thinks that she's on this path. She knows how her life is going to go, and she goes to sleep that night, wakes up the next morning and discovers herself in a different bed with a different man that she's never met before, and her life is totally different, and it's 5 years in the future. So she lives out that day 5 years in the future and then falls asleep that night back in her old life 5 years in the past. So then she's thinking, was that real? What happened? Is that what my life's really going to look like? Blah, blah, blah. And it sets her off on this wild adventure. So I think this one's going to be really interesting. It is pretty short. It's not even 250 pages long. So I think I'm going to try to squeeze this one in next. Number 13 is N for Now It's Your Turn. Tag a bevy of booktubers. And I don't know off the top of my head who I'm going to tag. I need to do a little bit of research and see who hasn't yet done this, but be sure to check the description box below. I'm going to be tagging 2 or 3 people at least. So that is it for the N is for Novella book tag. If you enjoyed today's video, let me know in the comments down below and answer one of the questions for yourself. As always, if you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to go down and give it a big thumbs up, as well as hitting the subscribe button and the bell icon down below so that you never miss out on any of my content. So until next time, bye!